Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast with your host and content creator, Johnny FIORICA, who thinks that drinking a large Diet Coke with his 20-piece McNuggets is a low-calorie meal. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Crime Dawg Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny FIORICA, 30-year retired veteran, the Rochester, New York Police Department. Sitting alongside me are my trusted co-hosts. First one on deck, he's a legendary street cop. He is an undercover cop. He is a SWAT team member, hostage detective, retired after 20-plus years with the Rochester Police Department. David Simpson, welcome to the pod, brother.
Happy to be here, boys.
Nice hustle, David.
Next one on deck, that beautiful voice you hear with the sweet locks of love on top of that head. He is also a legendary street cop, served the Rock currently 2.5 decades. He served all over the place, Genesee, Lake, Clinton. He is the current lead hostage negotiator for the RPD hostage team. He is a self-proclaimed Hall of Famer, and he is also the self-proclaimed alpha male of this podcast, Jason Blanchard. Welcome to the pod, brother.
Thanks, Johnny. A lot of David, thank you. Thank you, David. I appreciate any
big fan today, Jay. Big fan.
Thank you, my friend.
David, you just got out of golf, so I'm assuming that's why the loud golf clap. But we got a lot to cover. I don't want to get into anything, but that was a very loud golf clap coming from Golf League tonight.
And big week, Johnny. U.S. Open week.
That's right.
Starting Thursday, Pinehurst. Big weekend.
Big.
So, guys, listen. We had to do. I don't know. We call these emergency pods, and we jump onto our Riverside software and we pump out a quick 20-minute. There's no way we couldn't do a pod tonight to give our input on what happened to the president's son, Hunter Biden. So let's jump into it without further ado. Let's give the facts of the case first. So President Biden, our current president, his son Hunter was indicted in September of 2023. Federal grand jury on charges related to purchase of a firearm in October of 2018 while he was a drug user. According to court filings, the indictment returned by the grand jury convened in Delaware charged Hunter Biden with 3 felony counts stemming from his possession of a Colt Cobra 38 special revolver. So that being said, he was indicted on 3 counts. Today, he was convicted on all 3 counts. And what first count was the indictment alleges that Hunter knowingly made false and fictitious written statement on a form used for firearms purchase. Hunter certified on a form that he was not an unlawful user of any narcotic drugs, a statement that was proved to be false and fictitious. The second count that he got convicted of was that Hunter knowingly made a false statement and representation to a person that was unnamed, an FFL, basically, a firearms dealer in Wilmington. The third count, Hunter knowingly possesses a firearm across the 11-day period despite being an unlawful drug user in violation of federal law. So these are all federal laws. The 4473 is the application that's filled out by anybody and everybody looking to get a pistol. It is filled out for the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. These are all federal violations. All 3 counts, obviously, are felonies. If Hunter is convicted, which he was, he could face up to a maximum of 25 years in prison and about $750,000 in fine. Okay, now let's just get into it. So that's a quick overview of what happened today. He was found guilty of those 3 charges. Now here's I guess I would call it a disclaimer. Here's my perspective. If I'm going to be honest with our audience, since our podcast tagline is finally common sense has arrived, I'd be lying to our audience since we're in episode 23 or 24 or 25, whatever the F it is. I don't remember anymore. We always say we're going to shoot it down the middle. No, I do not think Hunter Biden should have been indicted and convicted of these crimes. And here's why. Okay. If we're being fair and being honest, as I've stated in previous episodes, I did 6 years with a federal task force with the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. The place was called the Violent Crime Task Force in New York. And if I'm being full disclosure, in my 6 years, I have never charged anybody with that offense. And also full disclosure, I worked on a 20-plus man team. I'm not really sure who the hell charged that. in my experience, I'm only speaking in my experience, what happens with these types of crimes, they are crimes though. What happens with these types of crimes when you find out about them, and somebody does admit to being a drug user, and they did admit to lying on it. Most of these times it happens in the interview room during the time they are arrested. But in most instances, these types of charges are referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office either says yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down, whether or not they're going to go forward with said charge. You could look up the statistics. They're even saying it all over national media, even before I'm saying it. But I knew this prior to them airing it. These charges, although they're valid, they're there for a reason, and it is federal crime. I would be remiss if I wasn't being truthful with you. However, that being said, this is what the Biden family gets. This is what President Biden gets. This is what happens when a guy like Joe Biden and the Democrats want to weaponize the criminal justice system. So here's where we are. This is what happens. You get the president's son getting indicted, convicted of, and charged with these 3 crimes that I mentioned a couple seconds ago. This is what happens when you weaponize the criminal justice system. And I'll be honest with you, there ain't a shot in hell he's going to jail or prison or whatever. They talk about it. This is what the guidelines are. I was a part of the federal system for 6 years with my partners with the ATF, and there is a long list of things that you got to check off to find your way to federal prison. So we'll see, but I highly doubt he is going to be sent to federal prison. And I don't even know how much of a fine this guy's going to pay. But like I said, do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. The logical sense tells me, no, I don't agree with it. But if I'm being fair, what they charged Trump with was BS. No one even knows what the hell they charged him with. It was all BS. Even the greatest legal minds, we talked about it in a previous podcast, even the greatest legal minds to this day are like, we have no idea what went on with that. At least these are actual crimes. So, David, what says you, brother?
Yeah, I spent 8 years in the same task force before Johnny, 2004 to 2012, with ATF. I've never charged these charges. I've never seen them charged. I've never been a part of any cases that it was charged. My problem with it is this. Hunter Biden was a part of a much larger conspiracy with foreign entities to bring substantial amounts of money, millions of dollars in from the Ukraine, from Russia, and other places to fill the coffers of the Biden family. And that's the real crime. And I, in my opinion, feel this is Hunter Biden taking one for the team. This has been dragged out perfectly orchestrated for him to fall on the sword, go to trial, let it appear that a pound of flesh has been taken, and Joe Biden, the president, can then run for re-election, and he is insulated and protected from his son being convicted on these charges. The bigger picture is where people take their eye off the ball. These charges, as you said, are complete bullshit. He's not going to do any jail time. The real crimes that were committed involve the president of the United States, and this was done to protect the president of the United States. 100%. The big guy was protected by his son. That anyone that's done conspiracy cases, long-term investigations, knows where Hunter Biden's crimes lead, and they lead right to the president of the United States. And the way you get around that is by convicting him of this bullshit. So, I'm not a huge fan of the Bidens, so it's, I don't know, nice to see him get convicted, I guess, but this is nothing, like you said, and the larger crimes are going to go unpunished because of this cover and because no one's going to investigate anything that could lead to the president.
Jay, we got a whole bunch of topics that we've covered over in the past. We covered the Trump trial. We did an episode on Trump's conviction, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, getting convicted of 3 federal felonies today. Jason, what says you?
Well, kind of as David alluded to, right? It's the look at my left hand, but forget about what's in my right hand sort of thing. The stuff that was a ton of substance to, that led to the president, the laptop nonsense, the selling access, from foreign entities to have access to the president, or when he was a vice president, or whatever, whatever spin you want to put on it. Hunter Biden's character is deplorable. He's a deplorable human being. I'd love to use harsher language than that, but I'm not gonna, get in here and start screaming and yelling and swearing. But his character, he's a despicable human being who did exactly what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it, and his daddy has protected him his whole life. He's a grown man, and his father has provided shade for his nonsense his whole entire life. That's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to his family. He's an embarrassment to our country. And the Bidens in general are an embarrassment by the way they've conducted themselves. And just as David alluded to, this was going to be short-stopped, so it didn't come to pull the president into any of the dirty politics that he was involved in, which we would not have to look too hard to probably draw direct correlations. It's the old follow the money. Where did the money go, and who did it end up with, and where did it come from, and why was Hunter sitting on these boards, is advisors and everything. This guy's a drug addict scumbag, and he's advising companies and foreign governments about policies and procedures. I mean, come on, man. We know better. Just as we said, right? We'll charge him up on this. We'll make it look like we're bringing some type of justice forward on charges that we normally wouldn't, and he's not going to beat him. But at the end of the day, it's not going to matter, because he's not going to face any real consequences as a result of this. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it highly. He's not going to prison. He's not going to pay a hefty fine. He's not going to do any of that stuff. Then they can say that it's water under the bridge, and we can move forward. Well, we know better. And I think that most of the people following this stuff know better. So, you get what you get.
Just on your guys' points, if you take out the foreign money stuff and you insert, like, let's say Hunter Biden was involved in a cocaine conspiracy, it'd be the equivalent of us doing a drug investigation. And you know what? We don't like who's at the top of the drug organization. We don't like who the big guy is, the top of the kingpin. So we're not going to follow the dope. We're not going to do the drug case. We're going to indict someone on the drug addict possession, if you will, but we're not going to follow
get a
the
hand sale, and we're going to charge.
Right. I mean, that's the equivalent of it. Any cop out there would be like, this is total bullshit. So, I just wanted to make the analogy for people that were listening, and like the bigger, this is the Democrats playing chess, not checkers.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And you know what? I couldn't believe it. So the guilty verdict comes out today, and it was so poetic because as the president made a speech on gun violence today, which I couldn't believe.
Did you hear that speech, by the way, Johnny?
Oh, it was horrible. It was, he mumbled and he rambled. He was incoherent. Do
you think he knew he was giving a speech?
Probably not.
God. It was so bad, Jay. If you haven't seen it, it was horrific.
It was horrible. It was horrific.
I saw him dancing next to Kamala, and by dancing, I mean he was just standing there in a catatonic state while everybody around him was dancing. I thought that was a pretty good video they showed this weekend.
So he gives a speech on literally gun violence, and let me tell you what kind of look at you're right, Jay. Hunter's a Hall of Fame scumbag, right? I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, he got kicked out of the Navy for coke. He's been stopped for coke in other places in the country. Daddy did provide him shade, but I don't even think that it was him getting his son off of things. I think it was just so he didn't look bad. That's what I think. And Hunter was just kind of that person, But yeah, he's definitely in the Hall of Fame D-bag category. But I don't think he's there for the cocaine use, because He's literally like a teenager with cocaine, and he's literally eligible to collect ARP magazines. Everyone refers to it as son, and they refer to him as son, like he's some 18-year-old F up who just hasn't seen the error of his ways. This guy is closer to 60 than he is 16, number one. But let me tell you why he's a Hall of Fame D-bag, okay? He had a relationship with his dead brother's wife, his dead brother's widow. That's number one. Haley.
He introduced her to crack.
He tried to turn her in. Yeah. He turned her into almost a crack addict and literally took advantage of the most vulnerable person. Now, this is a scumbag move, even if it was a woman who wasn't even related to the Biden family and she was like someone who lived down the street from them, like 17 miles. But this was his dead brother's like wife. It was his sister-in-law. Number one. That's how he gets the Hall of Fame D-bag status for me. Number one, literally.
By
almost
the way,
turned
the dead brother who was probably the only honorable person in that Biden male family, right?
So that was point number one I wanted to make. Forget about his coke. He ain't never given up coke, that kid. Let's face it, okay? And I don't give a shit if we get comments. Oh, you got to have sympathy for people. You voluntarily ingest something, it's on you. Period. End of story. Number one. Okay. So number two, that being said, I love the fact that we're just glossing over the biggest issue about this whole thing that I was watching the news all day and I heard it once. The sister-in-law that he tried to turn into a coke addict, crackhead, literally he tried to do it, right? She finds the gun cleaning out his car, doesn't want the kids to find it, so she grabs it, right? Instead of turning it in, okay, we've been involved in law enforcement close to 100 years between the three of us, okay? At the end of the day, if someone's going to hand you a gun, they could literally say, listen, I found this, here it is. They can get in a car, drive away. We're not going to put them in a headlock. We can't put them in a headlock. They did the right thing. They turned in a gun. No one got hurt, right? Now, of course, there's logistics to it. We run the gun, it comes back to whatever. But at the end of the day, if someone wanted to turn in a gun and we ran them, they had no record, this woman, this person, Haley Biden, takes the gun, finds the gun, and what does she think to do with it? She thinks to drive to a grocery store and tosses it in a garbage can. Now, anybody could have found that thing. Anybody could have found it, okay? A kid could have found it. He could have found it and shot himself. Could have shot his friends playing with it. He could have brought it home, fiddle fucking around when the parents were out to dinner, shot his little sister with it. I love the fact that the liberal left-wing crazy media, the people who don't shoot it down the middle, aren't even talking about that. And then the father, our president, is going to give a lecture today, of all days, on gun safety when his family literally, the biggest travesty was them throwing that gun into the garbage can, okay? But it's just crazy. They think, oh, you talk about that, it's right-wing rhetoric. No, it's not. What did I say in the beginning of the effing podcast? He shouldn't have been charged. Bullshit. I was a task force officer. I worked for the federal government for 6 years. I know what the do's and don'ts are, okay? I didn't fall off a turnip truck. But I love the fact that she took it, David, grabbed the gun, grabbed the pistol, and threw it in a garbage can. That's what I love the best about this whole story. When somebody could have literally got dead from her doing that. But no, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to address it. They want to talk about how the Bidens are a great family and how they're, huggy, kissy. He's got an addiction problem. The dude's close to 60. I can go on and on, but that's my biggest thing. D-bag number one for banging his dead brother's wife. D-bag number two for him leaving it in the car and her taking it and throwing it in the garbage. Unbelievable, but believable, to quote Jason Blanchard.
Johnny, I think you need to be a little more sympathetic.
Yeah.
It's the, as best I can tell, it's the legal gun owners who are the problem in this country. Yeah. So we need to impose some more laws and some more regulations and some more limitations on how many rounds can be carried and when and where they can be. We shouldn't be worried about somebody just discarding a firearm in a
garbage can.
Garbage can. That seems perfectly logical and reasonable. So,
well, not a garbage can like hidden somewhere or like off the beaten path. The one right in front of the grocery store. It's like walk to Wegmans and throw it in the garbage can.
Right.
Like it was
Right.
the can of Pepsi.
It wasn't even
Right.
the dumpster behind Wegmans. It was the garbage can in front.
On the way in. On the way into the store.
Yeah,
That's
right.
a good spot.
Unbelievable.
I'll hide it here.
It's a great spot. Folks, that's our take on it. That's a CDP Boys take on it. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoy all of our episodes. We hope you enjoy this episode. We hope that you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, which is at Crime Dawg Podcast. We have a website called thecrimedawgpodcast.com. You can watch our videos there also. Stay tuned for future broadcasts and podcasts. But like my brother-in-law, Frankie Grassi, says, if you can't make it, who cares?